Hey guys, we are the Jersey Comic Crew, and right now we are talking about DC's future state. What is it? What's happening with it? It's all in the comics and it's all in this video. Come on inside and we'll talk.
Hey guys, thank you for checking this out. We are the Jersey Comic Crew, and as Chris just mentioned, we are going to discuss the breaking news from DC Comics. They are releasing a new event called DC Future State. So this is going to take place in January 2021, and it's going to take over the majority of their comic line. So now you guys might be thinking, what is it about? Well, it's the future. You got that right. But it's going to take place after the events of DC's death metal, and it's going to show the a possible future landscape for DC years and years in the future. And it's going to happen for 2 months. We're going to see a new Batman, a new Wonder Woman, a new Green Lantern, a new Joker. Not no new Joker, sorry, a new Flash. Aquaman's child has grown up. We're going to see all new kind of stuff, and it's going to give them a break for that 2 months, and then after that, they're going to continue with their future plans for their continuity to have pretty much a new status quo. So we want to give you all thoughts on it, whether it's needed or not. So now DC compared to Marvel, they are in a weird state because they keep kind of going back and restarting, not fully resetting, and have weird continuity issues with their timeline since the beginning. You know, Marvel kind of has kept the same story continuing, you know, some events changing things. But I think this actually might be good for DC, right? Now, not necessarily the content that we're getting in those 2 months, but the fact that they're going to use the time now and that 2 months and to create, hopefully, like a final continuity standpoint, like plan for their future. Because what I think they desperately need to do, they just need to pick a point, stay to it, and move forward. Now, the content that we're going to getting, you know, all this future stuff with different Batmans, the Justice League, and, you know, new Wonder Woman, stuff like that. Jonathan Kent and Superman, I do like that part a little bit, but I'm not really excited for the content that we're getting for those 2 months. I'm excited for what we're getting afterwards, and I'm hopeful that this is going to be what DC needs to do a proper reorg and fix their timeline messes.
I think this is hands down a business daddy decision. I think this is an AT&T kind of like, hey, what were your plans before COVID as far as like they were going to, like, you know, Generations was supposedly the original working title.
No, it was well, I thought it was 5Ds. It was going to be to reset it.
Well, it wasn't going to reset. We were just going to get this kind of event that, you know, was going to come out of a free comic book day issue that was supposed to preview it. We haven't even gotten that. It got scrapped. And now we have this future state, which to me sounds like two things. It sounds like they're placating to whatever Bendis wants to do with anything.
Why do you say that?
Because he's kind of already doing this in Legion of Superheroes. If you read Legion of Superheroes, we already have, you know, we've talked about this, Jonathan Kent is aged up way too quickly.
Yeah.
The problems with Superman and that kind of intergalactic Space Force thing. And now Jonathan Kent is in the future, and he's kind of like he just wants to stay there, even though there's no reason why.
Yeah.
And we know Bendis has just kind of wanted to do the Legion of Superheroes this entire time. Like one of his main focuses of moving to DC is that reason. And I think with Future State, you're kind of like giving the keys to Bendis and saying, do whatever you want for 2 months with whatever character you want to do it with. And
oh, interesting.
I'm not really, and it's weird because it's like, all right, we're going to show you new characters, like the possibilities of a black Batman or a Jonathan Kent as Superman, or, you know, a different Wonder Woman also from Themyscira. And those concepts are like, okay, you know, from what we know, this isn't a different world. This is the same world, which doesn't make sense when DC has a multiverse. So I don't think doing this changes anything. I think it's a marketing ploy to see if people will like it and they could move on, because DC, out of any company besides indie companies, are the ones struggling the most with their sales. Marvel's sales are a lot better. DC, you know, likes to say, oh, it's the comic industry as a whole, but it's actually really just them.
Well, DC does well with Batman and Batman related books.
That's always the case. Yeah.
Right. Like, but them as a whole, they're doing bad. And I just think it's very important to clarify that because I'm sure people who don't know, they're gonna be like, "What about Batman?"
Batman always does well, right? It's Batman.
Yeah.
And Superman will do well because it's Superman, and some of the Wonder Woman books, and the Black Label's doing well, but it's as a whole, their comic industry is not doing as great, and AT&T I think is kind of tired of, pushing it and giving it money to do more. I don't think they really care about the comics line as much as they care about movies and TV shows and HBO Max and stuff like that. I get that,
but like them taking a 2-month hiatus, right? Which we believe is to reset continuity, to get continuity fixed, right?
Maybe. I have no idea.
You don't think that this is the point of this event? It's hard for me to see DC doing this without a bigger game plan.
Well, my issue with this is, so you're basically promoting this as like everything's different, but you're also having like, well, Superman's still around. He's on like a battle world. And Bruce Wayne's still around. He's in a book. Like, it's very confusing, number one. Number two, I think the biggest thing is, like, we know DC has the multiverse. Is this a multiverse story, or is this a main DC Earth Zero story? Mm-hmm. Which we don't know. I don't think it's going to fix anything continuity-wise. I think, if anything, it makes it muddier. And if it's the future, right? You're talking about future continuity that we're not there yet, that you're solidifying without solidifying current or past. And that could be even more confusing and kind of damning to your line anyway.
Yeah, I can see that, because like if you get all this future stuff, you're like, okay, I know eventually like this is what's going to happen. Like, and then you're worried about like how that affects current books now. Are they just leading up to that? Does that really matter?
Yeah.
I'm really hoping, I'm in the seat where this is 2 months of fun playing with possible futures. That doesn't mean anything. And reset is going to happen, and it's going to be bright, happy world. Now, we know that doesn't happen.
Well, that's the problem, though. You just said it. You said it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. I don't think this is going to mean anything. I don't think this event's going to mean anything.
I don't either, and I think it's going to be 2 months I'm not getting DC books and saving my money. I think a lot of comic fans are going to be in the same boat. I don't know why they think this is going to happen. And this also doesn't seem like something that Jim Lee's like gung-ho about. This doesn't seem like an idea for someone who is at the top of the comics industry and a trendsetter for the past 20 years to be like, this is a great idea for us. To me, this is AT&T going over his head and saying, we're going to do this whether you like it or not to see if it works. And it's going to be a marketing ploy to see if it sticks. And I think the best way to make sure it doesn't is to just not buy the books. Personally, which I hate to say because comics need it, but this is getting ridiculous.
So I can't sit here and tell you, Chris, or tell people watching to boycott the books, because some of the stories do sound interesting and cool. I think they're going to be enjoyable reads.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not telling people not to buy it. I'm saying for myself,
yeah,
I'm probably not going to be buying DC books for 2 months until it goes back to the stories.
Yeah, I just don't think it's going to be a lasting impact. And that's something like when you're a weekly comic buyer, right? Or just like a regular comic person, you want to know what happens to a character and why it's important, right? Like, oh, this changed this character, or this event actually happened in their world. And when you read an Elseworld story or something that, essentially doesn't count, it's entertaining, but like it's almost like it doesn't happen and there's no importance to you. I remember when I was getting into comics, right? And I want to know all the things that Batman has done, right? And people are like, oh, read these graphic novels. Mm-hmm. And somebody said, oh, this is an Elseworld story. I was like, what does that mean? I was like, oh, it's a fun story, but it happens in another world. It didn't really happen in the main continuity of Batman. So Batman that really didn't go through this. It's just like a what if you will. And I was like, oh, I'm not reading that. I don't care. Like, why do I care? I need to know what happens in the main stuff. So that's probably what's going to end up happening with this event.
Yeah, and it sucks too, because I also think it's a lot of corporate people who don't really know how to diversify their own comic line right now, right? Because they're talking a lot about like, hey, in the promo stuff, it's like, we're going to diversify this line, we're going to diversify whether it's the color or gender of different characters, and as well as the real writers and artists that do that. And that's all great, but if it's done the right way, or otherwise you're going to fall into the terrible word of pandering, and you're going to fall into the terrible world of we don't want this, like it's going to be a weird line where it's like, hey, do you even know what you're dishing out? Because any character, regardless of what they look like or do, has its own growth period, has its own make, and what do? Yeah, great. Hire those people, hire more diverse voices, but make the stories good and lasting, and you don't have to shut down your line to do it.
Going to your point of diversity, I'm a strong believer that's something that's needed.
Same.
And now if they're sitting there like, we want a black Batman, right? I'm sitting here as a comic fan. I was like, okay, we have Duke Thomas, we have Nightwing, the son of Lucius Fox, the son of the man who made all the bad things. Why not
Batwing?
What'd I say?
Nightwing.
Oh, sorry, Batwing. Thank you.
I'm like, wait, Dick Grayson's black.
No, Batwing, right? Like, you have these people of color in the Batman universe that get no attention, that deserve a lot of attention. You can make them amazing characters to take it to the next level. Like, a Batwing could be such a cooler character if somebody puts the time and effort in it. You don't need to create an Elseworld to make a person of color Batman, because you already have that. You have the son of the man who invented all this stuff, like, and who's trained. Yeah. And we do have, I'm just looking at the Bat family right now because it's big. People in the LGBTQ community, Batwoman, right? Batwoman is a lesbian superhero. She's great, but she still, as a known character, hasn't really seen the proper attention that she deserves to really push home some of these points. So I feel like DC has a lot of these characters in there that just need to put work in to make them bigger and better. And it might be easier on a business standpoint, like, oh, I'll create a new character, has new buzz, easier for people to jump in and do it. But in the long run, that's going to end up hurting you, because we see that right now with all these new creation of these characters. It's just going to keep falling off. Like, and you look at Marvel side of things, yes, they do that. Like, look at X-Men. There's a billion X-Men that just fell off the earth because they wanted to do that, and nobody cares about them. But now you take a character, let's say like Bobby Iceman, you reveal to him that he was gay and he was hiding it. Like, that takes the character, evolves it in a new way, and keeps him growing. Like, sometimes you just need to put effort into the characters that you already have. And that was my TED Talk. Thank you for watching.
That was my TED Talk. Yeah, and I think the overall essence of this future state book or situation or whatever you want to call it is, most events get publicized and marketed, and you look at them, and even if they're not great, you're like, okay, but I understand why they're doing it. Yeah. Like Marvel does like 3 or 4 events a year, right? We just got finished, the big Avengers arc with the Moon, and they're getting ready for the Phoenix stuff, and then you have King in Black coming later in this year, and we just finished Empire. And, it's kind of like almost like every quarter of the year they have an event. DC's been a lot more contained with how many events they push out lately, which I think is better. But this doesn't have any layer of like, oh, I get it, or, oh, okay, this is going to be at least readable. This to me is just a messy menagerie thing that is, and it also doesn't feel like the comic pros are the one making these decisions. And I think my biggest fear is that AT&T, aka Business Daddy, are they coming in and saying, if it fails, it gives us more of an incentive to stop this completely? Is it a win-win for us, as if it works, we look like geniuses and people are buying it up, and if it doesn't, we save the money because we could shut it down. And I think that's the biggest fear right now, especially for me as a DC classic comic fan of its characters and all that. That to me is something that I can't get past in my head for this entire event.
Yeah, so guys, obviously this leaves us with more questions than answers. We want to hear your thoughts in the comments below of DC's future state, what it means to it. Are you going to be getting the books or not? Are you excited for these new stories? Are you hopeful that, things are going to get fixed after this 2-month weird event? Let us know down in the comments below. But that has been our discussion on the future state. Thank you so much.
Hey guys, and make sure you give us a thumbs up. Really helps the channel out a lot. And subscribe if you're new. Ring the bell for notifications so you don't miss an episode like this or anything else we're doing. And we will see you next time.
Before you guys go, hit the subscribe button right here. You're going to see that icon. And here's some more videos of stuff you might like. Stay tuned.